My name is Cecilia Harry, and I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Fremont Development Council, which is part of the Greater Omaha Economic Development Partnership in the Nebraska-Iowa region. Well, right now we have a very significant project that's going on that's taking up the bulk of my time. It's a classic attraction project. Costco's looking at opening their first poultry processing operation in my community of Fremont. So day to day, I'm doing a lot of project management and client services right now. But when I don't have a project that is incredibly hot on my plate, other things that take up my organization's time are workforce development activities, a lot of partnerships in the community and the region there, a lot of existing business outreach and providing support and assistance to the companies that are already invested in our community, and then a lot of the less tangible work around enhancing our quality of life in the community. So it's a good place to live, a good place to send your kids to school, a good place to raise your family. So I'm actually a social worker by training. And when I went back for my master's degree, I thought I would continue to work with children and families after I earned my degree. Working with families that had been affected by child abuse and neglect was where I had spent a lot of my time. But while I was in school, I was exposed to this opportunity of economic development as a career, and this idea of working with businesses to create quality jobs in your community so that more families have that stable income that'll hopefully take away some of the risk factors that I would see in my child welfare work. So I really liked that idea of working with companies and using the business community to affect change in children and families. It's really the idea that what we do on a day-to-day basis keeps companies in our community healthy, thriving, and growing. I really like the idea of driving by an existing business in my community and seeing a parking lot full of cars, and that each car represents a family who has more stability in their life and can maybe pay the mortgage, pay rent, keep food on the table, that sort of thing, because of the consistency and the quality of job provided by that employer. So it's always really fun to see that when I'm going through the community. Other signs of positive growth, I think, include what the community's saying as a whole, really taking a temperature of how folks feel about the community. We're always our worst critics in terms of wanting to see change in our community and things improve. But when people are excited about where they live and excited about what's happening, how they're growing, really connected to what changes are actually taking place, I think that's a really good sign. It shows that people are paying attention and they're engaged and they're excited. So I've noticed a lot that there is a lot of scrutiny by the public in terms of how our elected officials are making decisions and that sort of thing. We're seeing that at the national level, the state level, and the local levels. And I notice that a lot in my work with my community. There's a lot of folks that aren't involved in economic development or business development on a regular basis that do want to weigh in on the conversation about how we grow and what that looks like. I think it's really important for us to find a way to listen to those voices and work collaboratively with different people with different perspectives in the community. But that's a lot harder given that there's a level of scrutiny and mistrust that we're not used to seeing. And that's going to look different for every community, but that's a large challenge that I am facing in my community, and I'm trying to work with different folks at the table to sort through that so that we can still continue to embrace growth and change that's good for the community. IEDC has had tremendous influence in my career. I actually learned about the organization when I was in graduate school, and being in social work school and not knowing a whole lot about the actual field of economic development, I was very nervous that no one would hire me when I graduated. I didn't realize that economic developers have such a diverse background and people come from all different disciplines and walks of life to do this for their community. So I had learned about IEDC as a student and said, I'm going to use IEDC as a tool to, one, help supplement what I'm learning here in graduate school, and two, to get connected so that I can hopefully be successful in finding a good job when I graduate. And so I went to the basic course in Nashville as a student, and that really helped me on the skill set tool aspect. And then I went to my first conference as a graduate student as well. And that's when I began to network and start to get connected with professionals. And I realized it wouldn't be as scary to get into the field as I thought, but it certainly was helpful to have that basic tool set that a basic course with IEDC provides for you, and then to start building that network of folks across the country who do what you do, are passionate about it as well, and know how to help plug you in. So really IEDC, I feel, helped launch my career, and there's no doubt that IEDC has played a very important role in what I do today and how I got to where I am today. Yes, I have several still. I feel very blessed to have several different mentors that I can call on depending on what the situation is. We are called to be generalists in economic development, but then we can also specialize depending on what role we're playing. So I've been fortunate enough to kind of build this little team around me that cheers me on and reaches out to me on a regular basis, and then I reach out to them as well regularly, and then when I have a specific question that pertains to something that they're more specialized in. And that certainly has happened through my involvement with IEDC. Well, I've always been impressed by how economic development is competitive by nature, yet economic developers know that it's best for the individual communities if we all collaborate. So it's great to be at events like conferences and training sessions and things like that. And so instead of sitting around a table of fellow economic developers and seeing them as competition, I see them as colleagues. And so that is something that I think is a great accomplishment that the field should be very proud of, because what it's done is helped us all to advance our communities. And yes, there's a competitive element when we are working projects or trying to attract workforce and that sort of thing, but we realize that behind the scenes it's better for us to collaborate, develop and share best practices in settings that are conducive to that, as opposed to always putting on our competitor hats and not collaborating when we have the opportunity. So on a daily basis, I get to see more people understanding why growth is important for a community. I represent a more rural community on the fringe of a larger metropolitan area. And so in my community, there's a lot of concern about keeping the small town small, but also growing so that we don't fizzle out. And it's been a work in progress over my time there, but I'm hearing more and more during regular interactions with average people, business leaders, folks across the community, that there's a way to do both. There's a way to still embrace the placemaking elements that make you excited about where you live, but then you can also embrace opportunities that grow your community and then actually strengthen those placemaking elements that you love so much. So I'm seeing that more frequently, and so that makes me feel good that more folks seem to be paying attention to it and understanding that it's not an either-or situation. Well, you definitely have to pay attention to both. A healthy economic development organization is meaningfully tracking ways that they're affecting growth. And so things like job creation, capital investment, those will always be important things to track and are important elements. However, I'm seeing more and more that it's really about the story. Statistics are statistics, but when you can talk about specific instances where the community has come together to support an opportunity, and then what that opportunity has done in the community, whether that's highlighting someone who's been able to advance their skill set or their career because of a workforce development or a business expansion opportunity or something along those lines. When you can personalize that and help people realize how the work we're doing actually weaves into the story and the culture of the community, I think is really important and helps folks better understand why we do what we do and the impact it makes. I would tell somebody new in the field to keep an open mind and an open heart, and to take every opportunity to learn and absorb from peers and from leaders in the community that you're representing. And I say the open mind piece because you're going to have to approach things differently depending on what the situation is. There's no blueprint for how to do good work in your community. So you're going to have to be open to adjusting, open to learning, and taking in different perspectives. But then also an open heart, meaning that you're going to be the most successful when you are truly invested and passionate about the company or the community that you're serving. When you have that passion for the folks in your community, for the community itself, that adds a layer of fire, a layer of commitment, and a way to be determined to get through some of the projects and to work through some of the collaborations that'll be necessary to see the opportunities realized in your community. I would encourage my fellow economic developers to take a step back and think about when they first walked into their office in the community that they're serving now, and remember what the challenges were then or what the climate looked like at the time, and fast forward to where they are now and see how that has changed in between. It has changed, whether it's small things like helping a Main Street coffee shop open, or something really large like a classic attraction project with hundreds or thousands of jobs coming into the region. To take a step back and do a before and after sort of snapshot and realize that every event where you've convened people to discuss progress and growth in your community, every project that you've worked on, whether successful or not, that brought a possible opportunity for growth for people in the community, every engaging opportunity that you've done to help inform somebody else in your community about why economic development is important, or why growth is something to be paying attention to. Every one of those opportunities is a step up in terms of moving from where a community started when you got there into where they are today. Every phone call, every networking event, all of those things is you over and over again laying the groundwork for projects to come to fruition, for the community to own the growth that hopefully you're helping them create in their community. So I knew as a student that I wanted to obtain CFD designation. I knew that it was the opportunity that fit me in terms of going through rigorous training and coursework, and then being tested on the knowledge that I had gained through the coursework, but then also through my experience. So I approached all the coursework with the goal of sitting for the designation in the front of my mind. And now that I actually have the designation, what it means to me is that I take what I do in the profession seriously enough to go after a designation that helps translate to others who are not in the field, that I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, and I care enough about what I'm doing to actually back up the programming that I'm putting in place for the community. And so it's not about necessarily career advancement or things like that, although I know that will hopefully help me in the future. But it was about becoming a better practitioner for my community and being able to have a stronger voice of authority when it came to projects and opportunities and programming in the community, because I cared enough about my discipline and what I was doing and what I needed to know, that I invested the time and the effort to go after the designation. I think in terms of the future of economic development, we're going to continue to be the advocates for change and the catalysts for change. That's going to look different as our economy changes, as businesses change, as we embrace more technology. So what we're doing today is going to look very different compared to what we will probably be doing in 3 to 5 years. But no matter how that looks in our country and in our individual communities, there's no doubt that we're going to continue to be the advocates and the catalysts for growth and opportunities that bring our communities into the decades to come.